Welcome to Ancestral Wisdom, where the wisdom of the past guides our future. Today, we're going to talk about how to plant an old vegetable that used to be very common and is extremely useful in a perennial permaculture garden. And that vegetable is usually called Good King Henry. It has many names. Another one that's common is Poor Man's Asparagus, and it has primarily two uses. One, in the spring, the shoots can be eaten like asparagus, and its other main use is as a leafy green with a good flavor and a good nutritional profile. So, why should you plant it? It's perennial. It will give you food year after year. It has not only the one use, it has two uses, and it supposedly comes up very early in the spring and helps fill in during that time when there's not really very much food available. So, Good King Henry, how do you plant it? Well, first, a little cold stratification. And what that means is you put it in the fridge. You find a way to mimic the conditions that it would normally experience before germinating in nature, which would be some inclement and cold weather. So, throw it in a moist paper towel in the fridge for about 5 days or so. Now, I've heard that it doesn't really like transplantation, but I'm going to try to sow it in the flats, and then I'm also going to sow it directly into the area that I want it to eventually populate. So I'm going to experiment. I'll try both ways. I'll see if the transplantation works. And that's what I'm doing with many of the vegetables that I'm planting and many of the things that I'm trying this year. I'm going to experiment and listen to what people say and then try it out in different ways and see what works the best. So people say that it doesn't transplant well, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't sow it in a flat and transplant it. We'll test the theory. So as I'm sowing it into the flats right now, first let me just give you a little update on what I've sown so far. So here we have our first seedlings starting to sprout. This is in a self-watering system, which waters the seedlings from below. It's very, very useful. And so far we have different types of kale coming up. I'll go to the other side so that you might be able to see the actual labels. So you have different types of kale coming up. You have kale here and here. You have collard greens. The leeks haven't sprouted yet. We have French sorrel, wild arugula, snow peas, volunteer snow pea right here in the wild arugula. Must have jumped over. Some echinacea starting to come up, yellow dock, hyssop starting to come up, and then heather. The heather historically takes quite a long time to come up. I sowed it in 4 different cells in 4 different ways. Just sowing the seed in the cell, cold stratifying it in the fridge for 5 days, putting it in an oven on 250 for 30 seconds in order to mimic some of the conditions of possible wildfires that heather might germinate after. And then I tried in the oven, stratifying it in the fridge and putting that same seed in the oven as well. So 4 different methods to experiment to see which one germinates first and which one works the best. So now I'm going to take some of our Good King Henry seeds and I'll put a few of them in our flats right here. So just a couple here or there. Press it in. Maybe cover with a tiny little bit of soil. That's number 1. And then number 2 right over here. Sorry if you can't see that so well. I'm working solo here. Alright, so I'll put our lid back on here. It's a bit of a dreary day. I love dreary days, actually. But even on a dreary day, it's a good idea to put the seed seed trays outside, because there's still more sun that they're going to be getting out here than they would if left indoors. So I take that out every morning, as long as the weather permits, and I bring it in every evening. So now the question is, where do I want our perennial greens? Now, it prefers full sun. So as I'm walking through our food forest area, which in early spring is on basically the first full year that I'm here, still hasn't really woken up so much yet. I think the best place you'll be able to get some full sun would be right here towards the edge, because we're going to get some great sun overhead right there. So, nothing fancy. That seemed to be working actually pretty well. Maybe I want to find a place where the soil has had a bit more time to break down, where the sod layer has had a bit more time to break down. I covered that side of the food forest a little bit late last season. Oh, that's interesting. That's a volunteer flower that was never planted. I think that's a good sign. And I think that might be a sign that we should plant this guy over here. Let's try a few. Just a few seeds here. Maybe I'll scatter a few in another location as well. Okay. There we go. Now maybe another good spot. Right over here. So, I encourage you to try to plant some good King Henry and get it established. The sooner you get it established, the better, because it's supposed to take at least a year before it really starts producing well for you. So I'm not anticipating having very much food coming from this good King Henry this first year, but by next year I should get a small crop of look, squirrels playing on the electric line. Not sure if you could see it. If you can, that'll be a good sight. I love the spring. But yeah, so hopefully next year I'll get a small crop of asparagus-like shoots in the spring, and then I'll start harvesting some leaves. Maybe even I'll be able to harvest a couple of leaves this year as well. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope this inspired you to grow a little bit of your own good King Henry. Let me know in the comments below if that is so. Eusterza Ansusoraido Kenas Kebo Johagalas Now dizi Sayera You as Petroelgas Sofilotivas Burkano Evomana Now dizi Sayera Otha